There are years no man can afford to waste, yet nearly all waste them, not because they are lazy, not because they are untalented, but because they make mistakes. Mistakes so common, so subtle that they do not even see them until it is too late. And when they do, the years are gone, the chances are gone, and regret is the only wealth left in their hands. You may believe you are safe, you may think you are working hard, providing, moving forward. Yet even as you listen now, there may already be silent leaks in your life, habits, choices, and compromises that are robbing you of fortune, stealing your influence, and eroding your future. These are not obvious failures. They are hidden thieves. They whisper, "It's fine. You have time." While the clock advances without mercy, I will not name them yet. If I did, you would nod in agreement and go on drifting as before. Go on drifting as before. No. First, you must feel the weight of this truth. You are not simply competing for money in these decades. You are competing for your destiny. The men who rise in their 30s and 40s are crowned for life. The men who drift are forgotten, or worse, remembered only examples of wasted potential. Think of it. Lincoln was obscure in his 20s, but by his 40s, he stood ready to preserve a nation. Carnegie was poor in his youth, but by his 30s and 40s, he commanded steel. Rockefeller, Ford, Edison, all men whose fortunes and empires were forged in these exact years. They made decisions that multiplied for decades, and for every man who rose, there were thousands who wasted their prime on errors so small they seemed harmless until the bill came due. And here is the brutal truth. The bill always comes due. The decisions you postpone, the fears you obey, the chances you bury, they do not vanish. They do not vanish. They compound into chains that tighten with each passing year. By 50, the chains are locked. By 60, they are unbreakable. That is why these years, your 30s and 40s, are decisive. They will cost you everything if you drift. So listen carefully. I will show you the 7 mistakes that ruin men in these decades. But do not listen as entertainment. Do not nod and say that is true and then return to the same path. Listen as if your life depends on it, because it does. Each mistake you recognize and destroy is a chain broken, a fortune preserved, a destiny reclaimed. I will not flatter you with vague encouragement. I will give you the dangerous truth. The truth the majority will never hear because they are too busy making excuses while their best years rot. You rot, but you are here. You are ready. And if you will hear me with both hands, you may yet seize the decades that decide all the rest. So let me begin with the first mistake. The one so subtle, most men call it prudence, yet it quietly murders their future. Mistake 1, the mask of prudence. There is a mask that ruins more men than open defeat. It does not call itself fear. It calls itself prudence. It whispers, be careful, wait a little longer, gather more proof, secure more advice. Under this disguise, thousands bury their best years thinking they are wise, when in truth they are timid. They mistake hesitation for wisdom and congratulate themselves while opportunity slips away forever. The fears that weave this mask are always the same. The fear of poverty says, do not risk, you might lose. The fear of criticism says, what will they think if you fail? Risk, you might lose. The fear of criticism says, what will they think if you fail? The fear of failure says, better to wait than to stumble. These fears speak softly, but they paralyze completely. A man in his 30s and 40s who obeys them is like a soldier who sharpens his sword but never enters battle. His years vanish while his enemies advance. Observe how these fears rob men of their prime decades. A man desires to begin a business, but fear of poverty whispers, keep the wage you have. He wishes to speak boldly, but fear of criticism warns they will laugh. He plans to expand, but fear of failure hisses, wait until it is certain. Thus he delays and delays until the years most suited for boldness are gone. His caution becomes his prison, and the mask of prudence his chain. Contrast this with Henry Ford. When he declared he would build a motor car for the multitude, financiers scoffed. Scholars denounced him as ignorant. Experts declared it impossible. Multitude, financiers scoffed. Scholars denounced him as ignorant. Experts declared it impossible. Had Ford worn the mask of prudence, he would have delayed, collected more proofs, and waited until the laughter died. But he acted. He built. He persisted. His aura of decision compelled men to believe, and his fortune crowned him. While others hid behind prudence, he marched with faith. Prudence has its place when it is guided by definite purpose, but prudence without purpose is merely fear in disguise. The true wisdom is not in waiting for perfect safety, but in acting decisively when the aim is clear. For safety is never perfect, but decision builds power. The man who decides grows stronger. The man who delays grows weaker. Delay compounds into drift, and drift compounds into ruin. Mark this truth. Hesitation costs more than error. A wrong step can be corrected, but no step cannot. A wrong decision may teach, but no decision enslaves. The timid, but no step cannot. A wrong decision may teach, but no decision enslaves. The timid man believes he is avoiding loss, but in truth he is losing the one resource never restored: time. Each year surrendered to the mask of prudence is a treasure buried beyond recovery. Say this with me now. I do not confuse fear with wisdom. My decisions are law. Fortune obeys. Speak it with conviction until it engraves itself in your soul. For the man who decides radiates authority. His aura commands. Men follow him not because he is always right, but because he always moves. The world bends more to the decisive than to the cautious, for decision builds momentum, and momentum conquers resistance. Do not imagine that you can hide your fear. The room feels it before you speak. When you delay, when you excuse, when you postpone, your aura grows dim. Men sense it and withdraw their trust. But when you decide, even amid uncertainty, your aura brightens. Men feel it and offer their aid. Certainty, your aura brightens. Men feel it and offer their aid. Infinite intelligence itself responds more swiftly to decisive faith than to timid prudence. Therefore, tear off the mask. Call fear by its true name. Do not flatter it as caution or prudence when it is nothing more than hesitation. Act upon your definite desire now. Risk not recklessly, but faithfully, for the greatest risk is not action, but inaction. It is better to fall and rise than to stand still and rot. These are your prime decades. Do not let the mask of prudence steal them. Mistake 2. The chains of wages. A man may believe himself diligent because he rises early, labors long, and receives his wage on time. Yet if all his labor is given only for the pay he earns, he has sold his soul cheaply. His 30s and 40s are not decades for survival alone. They are the years when a man must sow far more than his master requires. For these are the years when habits harden and destiny takes its shape. If he labors only for wages, he remains a servant forever. The world pays in proportion to service rendered, always more in the long run to the man who gives more paid for. But the man who calculates against his master, who asks, "Why should I give more than I receive?" radiates distrust. His aura whispers, "I am a man of limits. I cannot be trusted with abundance." And the law of life answers by keeping him small. These chains are subtle. They are not iron around the wrist, but thoughts around the soul. A man says, "I will save my strength until I am promoted. Then I will give more," but promotion never comes, for his aura betrays his selfish calculation. He says, "Why should I labor more for another's profit?" But by withholding, he withholds from himself the light of growth. He says, "I must secure my family first before I risk more." But in truth, by withholding, he ensures his family remains confined to the same small circle. Mark well the example of Charles M. Schwab. He began in the steelworks not as president, but as a worker. He did not calculate narrowly, giving only the strokes of labor his wage demanded. He poured thought, eagerness, and energy into tasks beyond his station. He looked for opportunities to give more service, to solve greater problems, to carry greater burdens. Carnegie felt this radiance. He saw in Schwab a man who swid more than he was paid for. That aura lifted him from the mill floor to the presidency of empire. Every man has two masters: the one who pays his wage and the law of increase. The first may fail, but the second never does. The man who sows in excess always reaps in abundance, though the field may change. The employer who withholds recognition cannot rob him, for the law brings another master who will reward the habit of excess service. But the man who withholds effort cheats not his master, but himself, dimming his aura until no one will trust him with advancement. In your 30s and 40s, this law is merciless. If you build the habit of serving wages only, you will carry that chain into your 50s, and it will never break. You will look back upon decades of labor and see no growth, no fortune, no expansion of power. But if in these years you cultivate the habit of excess service, you will carry that radiance into every opportunity, and the world will compete to reward you. Say this with me. I prove my worth before I am paid. I sow more than I reap, and my harvest multiplies. Speak it until it becomes your nature. Let it shape your conduct tomorrow. Do not wait for larger pay before you give larger service. Give larger service now, and larger pay must follow. If not from one hand, then from another. Look again at Henry Ford. Before the world crowned him, he labored tirelessly upon engines that paid him nothing. He poured nights, sweat, and imagination into experiments without wage. Yet those excess hours were not wasted. They built his aura, attracted capital, and compelled the world to reward him with riches beyond measure. Contrast this with the drifter who demands more pay before more effort. His aura is dim, his trust is poor, and his opportunities vanish. He may labor for 40 years and remain in the same station, always complaining that he was never given a chance. But the truth is, he never proved himself worthy of advancement by sowing in excess. His chains were his own making. The man of purpose does not ask, "What am I paid?" He asks, "What am I becoming by this service?" He sees each extra act, each extra thought as a seed that multiplies in his character and radiance. He knows the law cannot be cheated. What is sown must be reaped, and reaped in greater measure. His aura brightens. Men feel his reliability, and opportunity follows him as naturally as water flows downhill. This principle is not only for factories and offices. It governs every realm of life. The husband who gives only what he thinks is required, withholding kindness, love, and patience, finds his home grows cold. The friend who calculates every favor soon finds himself alone. The citizen who contributes only what he is compelled to pay is in the coin of mediocrity. But the man who gives more than is asked at home, in friendship, in community, builds an aura of abundance that draws loyalty, opportunity, and trust. You are in the decades when men are tested. By 30 and 40, youth's excuse is gone. These are the years when the world watches to see if you are man enough to bear heavier loads. If you give grudgingly, the world concludes you are not. If you give abundantly, it crowns you with greater responsibility. By 50, the judgment is sealed. So abundantly now, and the harvest will carry you through old age with honor. Therefore, do not wear the chains of wages. Break them by proving your worth before you are paid. Render more service than is asked. Give more before you are paid. Render more service than is asked. Give more thought than is demanded. Sow more energy than is required. Do it without resentment. For you are not serving merely a master. You are serving your destiny. The law will repay you with abundance. Your aura will shine so brightly that men will trust you before you speak. Affirm it again. Affirm it again. I prove my worth before I am paid. I sow more than I reap, and my harvest multiplies. Engrave it into your heart. For the man who masters this habit in his 30s and 40s will never want in his 50s and 60s. He will carry abundance as naturally as he breathes, because his aura will testify this is a man who can be trusted with more. Mistake 3. The tyranny of busyness. There is a prison in which countless men spend their 30s and 40s. Its walls are not built of stone, nor are its gates locked with iron. It is built of endless activity, of noise, of motion without progress. They call it diligence. They call it responsibility, but I call it the tyranny of busyness. It is the habit of mistaking constant movement for advancement, of confusing the fatigue of labor with the fulfillment of purpose. Observe the man who fills every day with tasks, yet advances nowhere. He rises early. He hurries from Observe the man who fills every day with tasks, yet advances nowhere. He rises early. He hurries from errand to errand. He ends the day exhausted. Yet when asked what he has built, he points only to wages spent and duties repeated. His aura radiates strain but not direction. He feels important because he is busy, but the years slip past and his position remains the same. His life is a wheel turning furiously, yet fixed to the same post. This is one of the costliest mistakes of prime years. For in your 30s and 40s, strength is still abundant, mind is still quick, ambition still burns. If these are poured into busyness without plan, they are wasted forever. Fatigue alone does not build fortune. Endless tasks without definite aim do not create destiny. The world does not reward the man who works hardest, but the man who works with definiteness. Abraham Lincoln knew defeat after defeat, yet each act, each speech, who works with definiteness. Abraham Lincoln knew defeat after defeat, yet each act, each speech, each campaign was bent toward his definite aim to preserve the Union and to rid it of slavery. He lost elections, he lost popularity, he lost ease, but he never lost direction. His days were not filled with random motion, but with purposeful persistence. That is why, when the hour of crisis came, his aura carried authority. His progress was not measured by how many tasks he finished, but by how each act carried him toward his supreme aim. Contrast him with the drifting politician of his age, who filled days with speeches and errands, but had no higher purpose. They were busy, but their busyness scattered them into obscurity. Lincoln's aura of definiteness, though tested in defeats, grew brighter until destiny itself yielded to him. His example reveals that progress is not the product of activity alone, but of activity bent toward a written aim. His example reveals that progress is not the product of activity alone, but of activity bent toward a written aim. Look also at the merchant who fills his store with endless stock, shuffles papers late into the night, answers every demand, yet never pauses to ask, what is my definite chief aim? Where do I wish this labor to lead? He wakes each year poorer in strength and no richer in fortune. His busyness is a tyrant that robs him of destiny. Say this with me. I measure by advancement, not hours. Every act bends me closer to my definite aim. This affirmation is a sword against the tyranny of busyness. It forces you to judge your labor not by fatigue, but by result. Not by motion, but by direction. Not by how many tasks were done, but by whether those tasks carried you toward your definite goal. You must understand the subconscious mind responds to definiteness. Infinite intelligence aligns with definiteness. Men trust the aura of definiteness. But when you scatter your force upon countless errands without plan, your aura is foggy. Men sense your uncertainty and opportunity flees. The world rewards decisiveness, not distraction. Do not boast of how hard you labor. Boast of how wisely you labor. Hours are not wealth. Direction is wealth. The man who spends 10 hours in confused busyness is poorer than the man who spends 1 hour in decisive action. For the one builds fatigue, the other builds fortune. In these decades, the choice is yours, either to be remembered as busy or to be remembered as decisive. I have seen many men awaken at 50 to realize that decades of busyness have left them no closer to their true aim. They built routines, they answered demands, they satisfied others. But they never bent their days. They answered demands, they satisfied others. But they never bent their days to a definite plan. Their aura grew weary, their faith dim, their destiny wasted. And yet I have seen men of fewer hours, fewer tasks, but with definite purpose, rise to greatness. The difference was not labor, but aim. Think of Henry Ford again. He was not busier than other mechanics of his age, but he was definite. Every hour he poured into the motor car was directed toward his vision of serving the multitude. His aura did not scatter with endless tasks, but gathered force in a single aim. That definiteness compelled investors, workers, and the world itself to bend to his vision. Busyness would have buried him in small tasks. Definiteness lifted him to mastery. The cure for the tyranny of busyness is simple. Write your plan. Define your definite chief aim. Reduce every act to its relation to that aim. If it advances you, do it with persistence. If it does not, cast it aside. This habit will transform your decades. Your aura will grow clear. If it advances you, do it with persistence. If it does not, cast it aside. This habit will transform your decades. Your aura will grow clear, your energy concentrated, your progress visible. Men will feel your direction and hasten to aid you. Let me warn you, the excuse of busyness is beloved by drifters. They say, I am too busy to plan. I am too busy to define my aim. I am too busy to study and think. This is the confession of a slave to motion. For busyness without aim is a narcotic. It feels like progress but is only drift. Do not be deceived. Stop, define, plan. Then move with persistence. That is mastery. Affirm it once more. I measure by advancement, not hours. Every act bends me closer to my definite aim. Speak it until you feel ashamed, not hours. Every act bends me closer to my definite aim. Speak it until you feel a shift within you. Let it govern your days. Then your 30s and 40s will not be wasted in the tyranny of busyness, but invested in the building of destiny. Mistake 4. The fire that consumes. There is a fire in every man. It burns in the 30s with strength. It burns in the 40s with force, and it may build empires, or it may leave only ashes. This fire is emotion, passion, ambition, anger, love, imagination, desire. It is the raw fuel of achievement. Yet most men allow this fire to consume them rather than to serve them. They squander it in quarrels, indulgence, envy, or pleasure without aim. They believe they are alive because they feel the flame, but they do not know that undirected fire destroys. You cannot kill passion. To attempt suppression is to kill vitality itself, but you can command it. This is the law of transmutation, the channeling of raw emotion into constructive creation. A man who masters this law glows with radiance. His aura blazes with A man who masters this law glows with radiance. His aura blazes with power. Men feel his presence, for his fire does not scatter. It strikes like lightning upon his definite aim. The man who disobeys this law is ruled by appetite. His aura flickers with chaos. Men sense weakness, and opportunity flees. Thomas Edison is the supreme example. He was a man of intense passion. Yet he did not squander it in dissipation or idle pleasure. He transmuted it into invention. Sleepless nights, endless trials, burning frustrations. These he poured into the lamp, the photograph, the thousand creations that carried his name into history. His fire did not consume him, it consumed obstacles. And his aura drew men to labor with him, compelled financiers to believe, inspired the world to follow. Contrast this with a man who wastes passion in vice. His years are filled with indulgence, his strength leaks through appetite, his ambition melts into envy, his frustration spills into quarrels. He feels alive, but he is burning down his own house. His aura is dim, restless, untrustworthy. Men may laugh with him in taverns, but no one will entrust him with destiny. By 50, his fire has consumed him, leaving only ashes where greatness might have stood. Mark this warning. In your 30s and 40s, emotion is at its strongest. These are the decades when appetites, ambitions, desires, and frustrations burn most fiercely. If you do not master them, they will master you. If you do not direct them, they will direct you. If you do not harness them to your definite purpose, they will harness you to regret. Say this with me. I turn fire into force. My emotions serve my purpose, not my weakness. Repeat it until you feel the fire within bow to your decision. For decision is the governor of passion. The man who decides can command even his strongest desires. The man who drifts is a slave to them. Do not mistake this for coldness. Mastery is not suppression. The man without fire is no more than dead wood. Mastery is direction. It is taking the flame of love and transmuting it into devotion, builds a family and inspires achievement. It is taking the flame of ambition and transmuting it into long nights of work that build an enterprise. It is taking the flame of anger and transmuting it into resolve that corrects injustice. It is taking the flame of frustration and transmuting it into persistence that conquers obstacles. Look again at Abraham Lincoln. His life was filled with sorrow and defeat, but he transmuted those emotions into compassion, endurance, and strength of will. He did not allow grief to consume him. He allowed it to deepen him. His aura became so steady and luminous that a weary trusted him through its darkest hours. His fire was not wasted in complaint. It was directed into this. That is why he is remembered. Consider also Booker T. Washington. Born in bondage, surrounded by limitation, he could have wasted his passion in resentment, bitterness, and complaint. But he transmuted it into education, leadership, and vision. His aura carried such faith and purpose that men who might have opposed him instead were compelled to assist him. His fire did not consume him, it lit the path for others. You must make the same choice. Do not waste your decades in indulgence. Do not squander your fire on appetites that leave only ashes. Each time passion rises, ask, how may this be transmuted into force for my purpose? If love, let it build devotion. If ambition, let it build enterprise. If anger, let it build resolve. If frustration, let it build persistence. In this way, every emotion becomes a servant. Say again, I turn fire into force. My emotions serve my purpose, not my weakness. Engrave it in your soul, for this affirmation is the law of mastery. The man who lives by it will see his aura burn brighter each year. Men will trust him, for they will feel that his passions are not wild flames, but disciplined fire. Fortune will serve him, for infinite intelligence responds more to disciplined passion than to cold reasoning alone. The drifting man spends his 30s and 40s being pulled by every desire, every appetite, every complaint. By 50, he is empty. The decisive man spends his 30s and 40s directing passion into purpose. By 50, he is full of power. Which will you be? The answer lies not in your talents, not in your education, but in how you command your fire. Remember Edison, who turned fire into inventions. Remember Lincoln, who turned sorrow into endurance. Remember Washington, who turned resentment into vision. Their greatness was not that they had more fire, but that they transmuted it. That same fire burns in you now. These decades will decide whether it consumes you or crowns you. Mistake 5. The lone candle. A candle may give light, but when the wind rises, its flame trembles, its reach is small, its power weak. Alone, it can guide one step, but not build a path for a multitude. Such is the man who isolates himself in his 30s and 40s. He insists he can fight his battles alone, build his fortune alone, carry his burden alone. He refuses counsel, rejects alliance, mistrusts the strength of other minds. In doing so, he condemns himself to the weakness of the lone candle. The law of success is harmony. When two or more minds unite with definiteness of purpose, a new power is born, the mastermind. This power is not theory, it is force. It multiplies the radiance of each man, creating an aura greater than the sum of its parts. Alone, your light flickers. United, it blazes. Yet most men waste their prime decades in stubborn independence, mistaking isolation for strength. They believe secrecy protects them, but in truth, it weakens them. Consider Andrew Carnegie. He confessed openly that his wealth did not spring from his hands alone, but from his alliance men of skill and faith. He surrounded himself with engineers, organizers, financiers, each harmonized to his definite purpose. The aura of this alliance was so commanding that it drew capital, conquered rivals, and built an empire of steel. Without this mastermind, Carnegie would have remained another ambitious immigrant. With it, he became one of the richest men of age. Look also at Henry Ford. His stubbornness was famous, but even he drew strength from alliance. His friendship with Thomas Edison encouraged him when the world mocked his dream. Their combined aura amplified each man's vision. Ford did not invent alone. He united with allies who believed in his aim. This is why his car filled the world while thousands of other mechanics laboring alone vanished into obscurity. The lesson is plain. Isolation diminishes aura. Harmony amplifies it. The lone candle may glow bravely, but it cannot withstand the storm. 2 candles, 3, a dozen, united. They light a hall and cannot be extinguished by the same breath that kills one. The mastermind is not sentiment, but survival. It is the only way to magnify your force beyond your individual limit. Yet men in their 30s and 40s often resist it. They say, I do not need others. I can carry this myself. Pride blinds them. Or they say, I cannot trust anyone. Men will disappoint me. Fear deceives them. Or they say, I am too busy. I cannot invest time in alliances. Busyness enslaves them. These are excuses, and each excuse leaves them a lonely flame flickering, while others form bonfires that command destiny. Say this now, I unite in harmony with chosen allies. Together, our radiance bends events. This affirmation is a declaration against isolation. It reminds you that your greatest strength is multiplied when you join in harmony with others who share your definite purpose. Speak it daily until your pride yields and your fear dissolves, for the law will not change. Alone, you are limited. United, you are multiplied. This does not mean join with everyone. The wrong alliance can poison more than isolation. You must choose allies as carefully as a general chooses commanders. See definite purpose, of faith, of persistence. Avoid the complainer, the cynic, the doubter, for their dim aura will weaken yours. Guard harmony fully. One discordant note can shatter the symphony. Better one faithful ally than a crowd of drifters. Reflect on Abraham Lincoln's cabinet. They were men of strong wills and sharp differences, yet united under his definite aim. Lincoln's aura was magnified by this mastermind. Their combined faith carried a divided nation. Without them, Lincoln would have been only a weary lawyer elevated too high. With them, he became the leader who preserved a union. Alone. In these decades, alliances are decisive. They open doors you cannot force. They supply wisdom you do not possess. They sustain you when your faith flickers. Many men fail not for lack of talent, but for lack of allies. They attempt to build empires alone, and their candle burns out in exhaustion. The wise man builds his mastermind, and his aura is irresistible. The truth is harsh. If by your 40s you have not cultivated alliances, you are already behind. The chains of isolation tighten with each year. Opportunities pass to those who are united. You may work twice as hard and still remain half as effective, for one man cannot equal the radiance of many. Fortune favors harmony. Infinite intelligence flows more freely through combined minds than through one. Say it again. I unite in harmony with chosen allies. Together our radiance bends events. Write it, speak it, live it. Begin forming your mastermind now. Share your definite purpose with a trusted ally. Meet often. Exchange ideas. Encourage each other. Hold each other accountable. This simple habit may multiply your fortune more than any solitary effort. Do not be the lone candle trembling in the storm. Be the blaze of many flames united. The years of your 30s and 40s will decide whether you stand alone and perish or unite and prevail. Break the mistake of isolation. Build the mastermind. For when you do, your aura will carry such brightness that men, money, and opportunity cannot resist. Mistake 6. The habit of surrender. There is a habit that steals more fortunes than poverty, destinies than ignorance, more years than idleness. It is the habit of surrender. It does not announce itself with horns or banners. It enters quietly, whispering after the first defeat. Perhaps this was not meant for you. Perhaps you should try something easier. Perhaps it is wiser to quit and men listen. They abandon their purpose. They excuse their weakness, and they begin a life of drifting. The tragedy is not in one's surrender, but in the habit it forms. For once a man excuses himself at the first obstacle, he grows quicker to excuse at the second, quicker still at the third, until quitting becomes his reflex. By his 40s, he is no longer a man of decision, but a man of excuses. His aura radiates surrender. Men feel it, distrust him, and pass him over. He wonders why fortune avoids him, not knowing he has broadcast defeat for years. Consider the story of Rude Derby. He and his uncle caught the gold fever and staked a claim. After weeks of labor, they struck ore. They bought machinery, invested time, gathered hope. Then, after a few carts of shining metal, the vein disappeared. They drilled on, but the gold was gone. At last, they surrendered. They sold the machinery to a junkman and walked away. The junkman brought in an engineer who studied the ground and discovered that the vein lay but 3 feet from where the Darbys stopped. 3 feet from fortune, they surrendered. But mark the lesson. Darby learned from his costly mistake. He resolved never again to surrender at the first obstacle. He carried this lesson into the insurance business. Each time a prospect said no, Darby remembered the gain and he persisted. In time, he built a fortune greater than the gold might have given him. His early surrender taught him that the habit of persistence is the only cure for the habit of quitting. This truth is written in the lives of all great men. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election. He lost business. He lost his beloved. He lost health. Yet he refused surrender. Each defeat deepened his persistence. His aura grew steadier with every blow. Men sensed it, trusted it, and in the hour of crisis followed it. His greatness was not in avoiding defeat, but in refusing to let defeat define him. The man in his 30s or 40s who surrenders easily is already burying his destiny. For these decades are the proving ground. Every great aim will be tested. Every worthy plan will meet resistance. The man who surrenders writes his own sentence of mediocrity. The man who persists engraves his name in history. The difference is not in talent nor in education, but in the choice to continue when defeat strikes. Say this with me. I persist until victory is won. Delay cannot break me. Defeat cannot define me. Let these words burn into your subconscious. Let these words burn into your subconscious. Speak them when the first obstacle rises. Speak them when fatigue presses. Speak them when failure mocks. For each repetition builds the habit of persistence. And that habit is the antidote to surrender. Observe how opportunity tests men. It does not yield at the first knock. It waits to see whether you will knock. It waits to see whether you will knock again, again, and again. If you withdraw, it concludes you are unworthy. If you persist, it opens. Fortune is not cruel. It is cautious. It rewards only those who prove endurance. The man who surrenders never proves himself. The man who persists compels recognition. Look at Henry Ford. His early models failed. His investors withdrew. His reputation was mocked. Yet he persisted. He was sued, ridiculed, opposed, and resisted. But he refused surrender. His aura of persistence grew so powerful that even judges and financiers could not break it. In the end, his vision prevailed. He did not succeed because he was spared defeat, but because he refused to surrender to it. Now, look at the man who drifts from trade to trade. At 30, he tries one path. At the first obstacle, he abandons it. At 35, he tries another, quits again. At 40, he begins a third, surrenders once more. By 50, he has mastered nothing. His aura radiates weakness. Men feel his instability and keep him at a distance. His life becomes a monument, not of failure alone, but of surrender. Mark this truth. Defeat is not failure. Temporary defeat is the seed of victory if you persist. But if you surrender, defeat becomes final. Failure is not falling. Failure is staying down. Failure is not the blow. Failure is the bowing to it. The world respects the man who rises again, even from great loss. It despises the man who quits at the first sign of hardship. Therefore, engrave upon your heart the law of persistence. Each time you refuse surrender, your aura brightens. Each time you persist, men trust you more. Opportunity yields more. Infinite intelligence responds more. The habit of persistence compounds into greatness. The habit of surrender compounds into ruin. Choose now which habit you will form in your 30s and 40s. For by 50, the habit is unbreakable. Affirm it again. I persist until victory is won. Delay cannot break me. Defeat cannot define me. This affirmation is your weapon against surrender. Speak it until it becomes instinct. Speak it until you cannot imagine quitting. Imagine quitting. Speak it until your aura radiates endurance so strongly that men feel it and follow it. Remember Darby, 3 feet from gold. Remember Lincoln, years of defeats before greatness. Remember Ford, ridicule turned to reverence through persistence. These men prove that fortune crowns not the swift but the steady, not the talented but the tireless, not the clever but the persistent. Break the mistake of surrender now, and your decades will bear fruit that endures. Mistake 7, the hollow temple. There is a temple in every man. Its walls are unseen. Its altar is hidden. Its doors are silence. It is the inner chamber of thought, the place where desire communes with faith, where the subconscious listens, where infinite intelligence answers. In the 30s and 40s, this temple must be guarded more fiercely than ever. For in these decades, the noise of life is loudest, the demands heaviest, the distractions most cunning. Yet most men neglect it. They rush about, they labor, they argue, they plan, but they never enter the chamber. Their temple grows hollow. The hollow temple is the ruin of countless destinies. A man may be diligent, ambitious, even talented, but if he neglects the covenant of silence, his aura reflects only circumstance. He becomes a mirror of the world rather than a commander of it. His thoughts are scattered, his faith weak, his decisions timid. Without the inner covenant, he drifts, carried by external winds. With it, he anchors himself to infinite intelligence and commands those winds. Booker T. Washington was born in bondage, surrounded by poverty, limited in opportunity, opposed by prejudice. Yet his aura radiated faith so bright that men who might have opposed him instead supported him. What gave him such radiance? He kept his temple filled each day. He renewed his covenant with purpose, faith, and gratitude. He spoke to his subconscious as to a faithful servant. He impressed upon it his vision, and through it, infinite intelligence supplied him with ideas, allies, and endurance. His greatness did not rise from circumstance, but from communion. Consider also Abraham Lincoln. In the darkest hours of war, when defeat seemed near and allies abandoned him, he often retreated into silence. There he sought guidance not from newspapers, not from politicians, from the unseen intelligence that governs all. His aura carried calm authority even when the nation trembled. That calm was not natural. It was cultivated in the temple of silence. But most men in their prime decades neglect this chamber. They say, I am too busy. They say, I will pray later. I will reflect when I am older. I will build my inner life after my outer life is secure. But by then it is too late. Their temple is hollow. Their aura is dim. Their decisions are reactive, not commanding. They have power in their arms, but weakness in their soul. Mark this. The subconscious is always listening. If you do not feed it deliberately with gratitude, decree, and faith, it will feed upon fear, criticism, and doubt. It will broadcast weakness through your aura, and men will sense it. You cannot deceive the subconscious by ignoring it. You must command it daily with affirmations, with definite purpose, with gratitude. That is the inner covenant. Say this with me. I enter my inner court. I decree my aim. Infinite intelligence aligns the world to it. Repeat it morning and nights. Repeat it morning and nights. Their words do not carry weight. Their plans crumble. Their followers drift. The filled temple produces men whose very presence commands trust. They may speak little, but when they do, their words strike like steel. Their aura radiates certainty, for it is fed not by their own small strength, but by the infinite current of intelligence. Reflect again on Edison. He confessed that many of his greatest ideas came to him suddenly as if whispered. He had trained his subconscious to be receptive. He had filled his temple with decree and persistence so infinite intelligence could answer. These flashes were not chance. They were the fruits of covenant. Do not imagine you can delay this practice. The decades of your 30s and 40s are decisive. If you fill your temple now, the rest of your life will carry strength. If you neglect it now, your later years will be hollow no matter how wealthy you become. Riches without inner covenant are fragile. They vanish without inner covenant are fragile. They vanish with markets. Radiance built in covenant endures, for it flows from us from a source deeper than circumstance. Say it again. I enter my inner court. I decree my aim. Infinite intelligence aligns the world to it. Write it, speak it, live it. Let it govern your nights and your mornings. Guard your temple fiercely. Do not allow complaint, gossip, fear, or doubt to pollute it. Fill it only with faith, gratitude, and definite purpose. If you do this, your aura will blaze with a power the world cannot resist. The hollow temple is the gravest of the costly mistakes, for it ruins even men of talent and ambition. It leaves them empty at the core. Do not let this be your fate. Be your fate. Build your covenant now, and your decades will be crowned with radiance. The 30s and 40s are the fulcrum of a man's life. In youth, mistakes can be forgiven. Strength is abundant. Time is plentiful. Errors are corrected by the elasticity of youth. In old age, regrets are excused. Men are forgiven for no longer striving. But in these decades, excuses are not tolerated. The world watches you now, measures you now, tests you now. These years will either crown you with authority or chain you with mediocrity. That is why every mistake in these years costs tenfold. And that is why I say plainly, if you drift now, it will cost you everything. I have shown you the 7 mistakes. They are not dramatic failures. They are subtle thieves. They do not shout. They whisper. They do not strike suddenly. They corrode silently. Each year you allow them, they compound, and when the bill arrives at 50, at 60, it is too late to pay. The chains are locked. The years are gone. The fortune is lost. That is the reckoning. The first mistake was the mask of prudence. Fear disguised itself as wisdom, and men obeyed it. They called their hesitation caution, their timidity prudence, their delay maturity. But the truth was fear, and fear robs the decisive years. Henry Ford acted while others waited. The cautious laughed at him. Yet they are forgotten, and he is remembered. Mark this truth. History does not honor the cautious. It crowns the decisive. The second mistake was the chains of wages. Men sold their time for pay and believed themselves secure. They measured each hour against each coin, gave no more than was asked, and thought themselves clever. But their aura dimmed, their trust evaporated, and their decades were consumed in labor without fortune. Charles Schwab gave more than he was paid for, and Carnegie crowned him. Thousands gave only what they were paid for, and they remain anonymous. Which will you be? The third mistake was the tyranny of busyness. Men filled their days with tasks, their hours with motion, their years with fatigue. They boasted of being busy but advanced nowhere. They confused activity with progress, hours with achievement, labor with destiny. Abraham Lincoln, though defeated many times, bent every act toward his great aim. That is why his defeats became preparation and his victories immortal. The busy man remains exhausted and forgotten. The man of purpose bends history. The fourth mistake was the fire that consumes. Emotions are power, but most men let them rule instead of ruling them. They squander passion in indolence, envy, quarrels, and appetites. Their fire burns them down, but Edison turned passion into invention. Lincoln turned grief into endurance. Washington turned resentment into vision. Their fire built empires. Yours will either build or destroy. The choice is yours. The fifth mistake was the lone candle. Men isolated themselves, proud of independence, fearful of betrayal, too busy for alliance. They labored alone, and their flame flickered. Carnegie confessed his fortune was the product of his mastermind alliance. Ford was strengthened by Edison. Lincoln was sustained by his cabinet. The man who insists on walking alone may glow bravely, but he cannot withstand the storm. The mastermind multiplies strength. The lone candle dies. The sixth mistake was the habit of surrender. Men faced defeat and they bowed. They excused themselves, tried something else, and built the reflex of quitting. By 40, they were masters not of persistence, but of excuses. Darby stopped 3 feet from gold, surrendered and lost a fortune. But when he learned persistence, he built one greater. Lincoln lost election after election, but he persisted, and his persistence crowned him. The habit of surrender ruins decades. The habit of persistence builds empires. The seventh mistake was the hollow temple. Men neglected their inner covenant. They filled their days with noise, their nights with distraction, their minds with fear, and they never communed with infinite intelligence. Their subconscious reflected only circumstance, and their aura radiated weakness. But Washington filled his temple with faith, Lincoln with prayer, Edison with imagination. Their aura drew men and fortune. The hollow temple leaves a man empty even if he is wealthy. The filled temple makes a man radiant even if he begins in chains. Now, you must see, each mistake is not a single error, but a way of living. They are habits, and habits once formed in these decades calcify into chains that cannot be broken later. That is why I say the 30s and 40s are decisive. They will either build habits that crown you or habits that ruin you. This is the reckoning of the decades. Ask yourself now, which of these mistakes whispers in your own life? Which of these mistakes whispers in your own life? Do you wear the mask of prudence, excusing fear as wisdom? Do you serve wages instead of purpose, giving no more than you are paid for? Do you boast of busyness while drifting without plan? Do you waste your fire in indulgence instead of transmuting it into achievement? Do you labor as a lone candle instead of forming a mastermind? Do you surrender at the first defeat, building excuses instead of endurance? Do you neglect your temple, allowing your subconscious to be ruled by fear instead of faith? If you find even one of these habits in yourself, do not excuse it. Do not delay correcting it. Do not flatter yourself that you have time. Time in these decades is the most costly substance in existence. Every year wasted is a fortune lost. Every year wasted compounds into decades of mediocrity. By 50, the reckoning arrives and the bill cannot be denied. But there is hope, and it is urgent. For each mistake denied. But there is hope, and it is urgent. For each mistake has its antidote. Fear is broken by decision. Wages are broken by excess service. Business is broken by definite plan. Fire is mastered by transmutation. Isolation is broken by mastermind. Surrender is broken by persistence. The hollow temple is filled by covenant. If you will take these antidotes now, you may yet seize your decades and secure your destiny. Say these affirmations with me slowly with conviction, as if engraving them upon your soul. I do not confuse fear with wisdom. I serve purpose, not wages. I measure by progress, not busyness. I turn fire into force. I unite with allies in harmony. I persist until victory. I covenant with infinite intelligence. Repeat them each morning and night until they become your nature. Each affirmation is a sword against a mistake. Each decree is a chain broken. Each repetition brightens your aura. In time, these words will not be mere sounds, but living truths that shape your destiny. Consider once more the men history remembers. Lincoln was obscure in his 20s, but by his 40s his aura of persistence and purpose had prepared him for greatness. Carnegie was poor in youth, but by his 30s his alliances and definitesse crowned him with steel. Rockefeller, Ford, Edison all built their empires in these decades. They made decisions. They persisted. They transmuted passion. They united with allies. They communed with infinite intelligence. Their decades were not wasted in mistakes, but invested in mastery. And consider the thousands who worked as hard, who labored as long, who were just intelligent, but who wore the mask of prudence, served only wages, drifted in busyness, wasted their fire, isolated themselves, surrendered at defeat, and neglected their temple. They are forgotten. Or worse, they are remembered only as examples of wasted potential. I tell you plainly, you are at the crossroads. These years will decide. You cannot drift and hope to arrive. You cannot excuse and hope to advance. You cannot postpone and hope to seize later. Later does not exist. Only now exists. If you act now, seize now, decide now, persist now, you may yet claim the crown of destiny. If you delay, drift, excuse, and surrender, you will meet the reckoning with empty hands. Therefore, choose. Tear off the mask of prudence and act with decision. Break the chains of wages and give more than you are paid for. Escape the tyranny of busyness and bend each act to your definite aim. Command the fire within and transmute it into achievement. Refuse to remain a lone candle into achievement. Refuse to remain a lone candle and unite in harmony with chosen allies. Reject the habit of surrender and engrave persistence into your soul. Guard your temple, fill it with faith, and commune daily with infinite intelligence. Do these, and your decades will not be wasted but multiplied. Do these, and your aura will blaze so brightly that men, money, and opportunity will yield to you. Do these, and at 50 you will not face chains but crowns. At 60 you will not face regret but respect. At 70 you will not be hollow but full. This is the reward of seizing the decades. But fail to do these, and the reckoning is inevitable. You will not escape it. No excuse will excuse it. No regret will erase it. No delay will defer it. The decades decide everything. They are the years of power, the years of decision, the years of destiny. Drift in them, and you pay with your life. Master them, and you live your life. Master them, and you live as a man crowned. Say the affirmations once more as the seal of your choice. I do not confuse fear with wisdom. I serve purpose, not wages. I measure by progress, not busyness. I turn fire into force. I unite with allies in harmony. I persist until victory. I covenant with infinite intelligence. Let these decrees be your covenant. Live them, speak them, engrave them. For the days are short, the reckoning is near, and the cost of drifting is everything. But the reward of mastery is also everything. And that choice, the choice of ruin or crown, rests in your hands.